Hello, and welcome to the latest installment of Law & Order, the video series where I look at and unpack stories from games. In this one, we'll be looking at the story from Bethesda's Fallout 4. 4 years after Bethesda released Skyrim, they released Fallout 4. This was their next-gen Fallout at the time. It looked different to 3 and New Vegas, but in my opinion, although games do tend to improve graphically anyway, Fallout 4 didn't have the same aesthetic charm as the 2 previous games, but that's just my opinion, of course. I previously covered Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas and had a great time doing so. I also did separate videos covering the various vaults in the Capital Wasteland and the Mojave, and I'll be doing the same here. I'll cover the plot from the main campaign and do a separate video on the vaults of the Commonwealth. As with New Vegas, there are branching storylines with 4 factions that you as the player can side with. With that said too, there are numerous ways that the story can play out, so in your playthrough you may have had optional missions that I did not, and vice versa. There were also numerous expansions to this game, and of these, with Far Harbour being my favourite, it was only that one that had a minor connection to the story, so we'll cover that DLC too in this video. I will also not be covering the reasons for the Great War, as I covered that in my Fallout 3 video, so please go and check that out if you haven't already, if you want a recap of how and why the world ended up a nuclear wasteland. I think that's everything, so here's your obligatory spoiler warning. Let's cut the waffling and get into the story for Fallout 4. The date is the 23rd of October 2077, the date that would change the world. A married couple in Boston, Massachusetts are at their home in an idyllic suburb known as Sanctuary Hills, with its freshly mown lawns, trimmed hedges and white picket fences. All is good and the sun is shining. This is a family of 3, mum, dad and their baby son Sean. The husband is a retired US Army veteran who served in the 108th Infantry, and the wife is a lawyer. The husband was getting ready for an event at the Veterans Hall in the nearby town of Concord when there was a knock at the door. Standing there is a Vault-Tec salesman. He's selling spots in Vault-Tec's state-of-the-art vaults, as the company had been contracted by the US government to build these vaults as part of a top-secret project called Project Safe House, since US relations with China had been tense in recent years, and one of these fallout shelters has been built just behind their own suburb. After some back and forth in which the family learned they had been pre-accepted into the vault, they hear an announcement on the TV. It warns them of an imminent nuclear attack, and with knowledge of the vault, they rush to it, being let through. They find the Vault-Tec salesman begging to be let through, but the military do not let him past. They stand on the elevator platform being taken down, but as they are, a nuclear strike hits the landscape in the distance, and they just about escape the blast wave. The family, along with other residents of Sanctuary Hills, are given special vault suits, and they are told they are to be decontaminated, but instead they get placed into cryosleep. 150 years pass and the husband is woken up from his slumber and witnesses 3 people trying to take Sean. One of them, who is dressed differently to the rest and identifiable, shoots the wife in the head, killing her instantly. The man looks straight at the husband, calling him the backup, before placing him back into cryosleep, where for the next 60 years he would remain until the year 2287, when he is able to leave cryosleep. For context, this is 10 years after the events of Fallout 3 and 6 years after the events of Fallout New Vegas. Remembering the shocking murder of his wife as if it had just happened, the husband sees that the others in the cryopods appear to have died. He is the sole survivor of Vault 111. The sole survivor, after saying goodbye to his wife, attempts to leave the vault and finds a Pip-Boy, a device that attaches to the wrist and monitors the vital signs of the wearer. Using this to open the large vault door, he steps out into the open air and finds the world totally changed. It's now a vast, mostly dead landscape, destroyed by the horrors of nuclear war. Heading down the path they had hurriedly run up to get to the vault centuries ago, walking past all the bodies of the people unfortunate enough to have been caught in the blast wave, the sole survivor finds their home completely destroyed. Their old robot butler Codsworth is still there, trimming the hedgerows, completely oblivious to the fact that the world, as it was previously, had ended. Codsworth informs the sole survivor that over 200 years have passed since the family went into the vault. Informing Codsworth that Sean has been kidnapped, the robot tells the sole survivor to go to nearby Concord to find help. On the way, at the gas station, the Red Rocket, the sole survivor meets a stray dog, which he can choose to take with him, calling the dog Dogmeat. Arriving there in Concord, he finds raiders in a conflict against a group of survivors inside the Veterans Hall. Helping them with the raiders both inside and outside the building, he meets the survivors. Speaking to their leader, Preston Garvey, he says that they are all that remains of what was once the Commonwealth Minutemen. The sole survivor can choose to help them take out what remains of the raiders, but let's say for the sake of the story that it does help. He is directed to a suit of power armor, and finding a fusion core for it, he is able to use it to defeat the raiders and uses a minigun to take out a ferocious Deathclaw. With the threats in Concord dealt with, these settlers need somewhere to call home and are actually headed to Sanctuary Hills. At some point later on as well, if helping the Minutemen out, Preston says that he's making the survivor the Minutemen's new general. Speaking with someone there called Mama Murphy, she tells the sole survivor that he should head to a town known as Diamond City, and that there he may find the answers as to Sean's whereabouts. Heading over to Diamond City, the sole survivor sees a woman trying to gain access to the city but is being refused over an article that she wrote which was all lies. The mayor is in a bad mood because of it, and even though the reporter lives in Diamond City, she is stuck. She hatches a ruse using the sole survivor as her way in, and the gate is opened and the sole survivor meets the mayor, McDonough. McDonough welcomes the sole survivor to the city, and in response to a question about Sean, the mayor seems to be evading the question but tells the sole survivor that someone in the city will probably be able to help him. The woman, called Piper, demands to know from McDonough about kidnappings and why the security team there in the city are always ignoring and refusing to investigate them. One guard there, Danny, accidentally mentions people called the Institute, who Danny reluctantly says that people tend to blame when things go wrong in the Commonwealth. Entering the city, it's certainly special, a place they call the Jewel of the Commonwealth. It's located in a former baseball stadium. Whilst in the city, he gets directed to Valentine's detective agency. The detective there is Nick Valentine, except he's not there. Speaking with his secretary, Ellie, she says that Nick had gone missing and she's worried. Needing Nick's help, the sole survivor offers to find Nick, and Ellie says that he was previously working a case where a gangster by the name of Skinny Malone had kidnapped a young girl and taken her to their hideout in Park Street Station. With no other leads, the sole survivor goes to Park Street Station and fights his way through the many gangsters inside. Malone's gangsters, who go by the name the Triggermen. Inside the station is one of the Vault-Tec fallout shelters, and it's not long until the sole survivor finds Nick Valentine. To his surprise, Nick is a synth. Explaining why he needs his help to find Sean, the sole survivor along with Nick fight their way out of the vault until they get to the exit and are confronted by Skinny Malone himself, along with the young woman he'd kidnapped, who herself went with Malone willingly. She can be convinced to go back home after she's realised that she's made a terrible decision, and she leaves. This confrontation with Malone can end up with blood being spilt, or it can result in both the sole survivor and Nick leaving without issue. Leaving the station and heading to Nick's office, they talk about Sean's disappearance, and it seems that Sean's kidnapping was in no way random. Bringing Nick up to speed on what he needs to know, Nick brings up groups that might be responsible, but one sticks out, and that is the Institute. Nick himself is an older Model Institute synth but knows nothing about them. Describing the man that took Sean and killed his wife, Nick says that the description sounds like a man called Kellogg. They have a previous case involving this Kellogg, and it appears that he bought a house right there in Diamond City. Not just that, but Kellogg had a boy with him at some point, who was around 10 years old, but Kellogg, a known mercenary, has since disappeared. Going to Kellogg's front door, it's locked, and if they aren't able to pick it, Nick suggests the sole survivor go and speak with McDonough. Doing so, McDonough is not very helpful, and he doesn't seem to be bothered at all by the nature of the sole survivor's problem, and refuses to give him a key to Kellogg's house, which the city has seized. Either way, by stealing the key to Kellogg's house or by breaking in, the sole survivor and Nick find a secret room, and inside is a particular brand of cigar. Using Dogmeat's keen sense of smell, they are led across the Commonwealth and to a number of places that Kellogg stopped at, and they find bloodied bandages which lead them to a place called Fort Hagen. Entering, it's swarming with synths, and both the sole survivor and Nick fight their way through them, occasionally being warned by Kellogg over the intercom to turn back or they'll die. They obviously ignore his threats and manage to confront him. Demanding to know where Sean is, Kellogg says that he is just a puppet. He says that Sean is not there but with the people who are pulling the strings. Demanding that Kellogg take him to Sean, he laughs and says that he is in a place that nobody can reach, at the Institute. Kellogg was paid by the Institute to deliver Sean to them, and that's it. He's just a mercenary. After the short conversation, the inevitable happens and a firefight takes place wherein Kellogg is killed. But searching the body, he appears to have a brain chip, something called a cybernetic brain augmenter. Nick suggests that they speak with Piper back in Diamond City, as she is the only person willing to investigate the Institute publicly. Leaving the fort, the sole survivor spots a massive airship headed towards the airport, flanked by multiple vertibirds. This signals the fact that the Brotherhood of Steel are now there in the Commonwealth. They state that their intentions, despite appearing threatening, are in fact peaceful. But anyway, with more pressing matters at hand, the sole survivor heads back to Diamond City with Nick, and they meet it with Piper. She says that the Institute are feared and are hated by pretty much everyone. No one knows how to get in or out of there, exactly as Kellogg said. Kellogg will know, and it's down to the cybernetic augmentation device. It'll have his memories on there. Nick suggests a place called the Memory Den in a small town called Goodneighbor, and there a Dr. Amari might be able to help them dive into those memories. So, going over to Goodneighbor, the sole survivor meets Nick and Dr. Amari there. She says that the memories require a living brain to function. Giving her Kellogg's hippocampus and the augmentation device attached to it, she says that this is Institute tech. Thankfully, as Nick is an older model of Institute synth, he is compatible with this device. Placing it inside him, Amari says that there's a lock on the memories. A failsafe put in there by the Institute so that if Kellogg was compromised at any point, he wouldn't have any usable info on how to get to the Institute. Anyway, around this is to place both Nick and the sole survivor into the memory loungers, and this will allow Nick to act as a host, and the sole survivor's consciousness will essentially go through and navigate the memories they find. So diving in, they find and witness various memories of Kellogg's past, from his turbulent childhood, his marriage, having a family, and losing said family by crossing the wrong people, a turning point in Kellogg's life where he'd take any job that was paying. But some memories they find, and ones they were really looking for, is when Kellogg received a visit from some people from the Institute who were annoyed at his disruption of their secretive activities. He managed to convince them to give him a job, after he showed them his combat prowess by taking out a load of synths, and he would work for the Institute after that, with that leading to the point he'd gotten a job to kidnap Sean. Sean would grow up with Kellogg raising him. It's a recent memory, according to Dr. Amari. He's visited by an Institute synth dressed all in black, who gives Kellogg another job and says that one of their scientists has left the Institute and has gone rogue. A scientist by the name of Dr. Brian Virgil. He's hiding someplace called the Glowing Sea, and he had been working on a highly classified program at the Institute. It's at this point that the man in black took Sean back to the Institute. Both the man and Sean then teleport out of there. Amari states that this makes so much sense. No one can find the Institute entrance because there isn't one. Exiting the memory session, and with the knowledge that there's an Institute scientist out in the Glowing Sea, the sole survivor needs to take a journey there. Amari does say, however, that it doesn't make sense that Virgil fled there as he'd have died from exposure alone. The sole survivor will need a suit of power armor or hazmat suit to journey through there, as not only is it incredibly dangerous, but it also has high radiation levels too. Before leaving Goodneighbor, the sole survivor can also go to the Hotel Rexford and meets a familiar face. It's the Vault-Tec salesman, and he's now a ghoul. Having survived the initial blast, his ghoulification granted him longer life, and he's very surprised to see the sole survivor, and he does indeed remember him. The survivor can choose to give him hope as he's been lonely and depressed, and he can send him to Sanctuary. Anyway, the survivor makes his way to the Glowing Sea and braves the many dangers in order to reach a well-hidden cave right in the southwest corner. Inside, the sole survivor meets Virgil, who is a super mutant. A very intelligent super mutant, as opposed to the extremely aggressive and mentally slow super mutants that one would usually encounter. He speaks as if he's expecting Kellogg, but soon realizes that the sole survivor isn't from the Institute, nor is he there to kill him. Dr. Virgil had infected himself with the forced evolutionary virus, a virus that turns humans into super mutants, in order to survive the Glowing Sea. He was the lead scientist on the Institute's research into FEV. Virgil had a crisis of conscience during these experiments where many human beings were sacrificed, and this is why he left the Institute. Asking him for his help, he of course says that he'll need something in return. Though when the survivor gets back into the Institute, to look in his old lab for an experimental serum that could change him back to his human form. Agreeing to do so, Virgil calls the teleporter a molecular relay. It's the only way in and out of the Institute. He mentions coursers, another secret of the very shady Institute. Coursers are basically Institute hunters. They hunt down and either eliminate or capture synths that have escaped from the Institute. The sole survivor needs to kill one, as within them is a special piece of hardware that gives the courser a direct connection to the molecular relay, and it's a chip inside the courser's head. He informs the sole survivor of an insertion point which is in a building called CIT, which stands for the Commonwealth Institute of Technology, which sits directly above the institute. Virgil says that a signal built into the survivor's Pip-Boy will lead him straight to a Corsair, so on backtracking through the glowing sea, the sole survivor goes to CIT and tracks the Corsairs to a place called Green Tech Genetics, where he finds a faction known as Gunners fighting the Corsair. Finding the Corsair, the sole survivor fights it, and after the fight, which was a challenging one, he gets the Corsair chip. Having retrieved it, he heads to speak with Dr. Amari, who says that in order to retrieve the code from inside the Corsair chip, the sole survivor should seek out a group or faction who call themselves the Railroad. They are a group that dedicate themselves to the freedom of synths, believing them to have the same rights as humans.
Wake up, Commonwealth. Synths are not your enemy. They are victims in this war as well. True, they were created by the Institute, but they were created as slaves. Thinking, feeling, and dreaming beings, utterly oppressed by their tyrannical masters. So join with us in fighting the real enemy, the Institute. Join the Railroad. When you're ready for that next step, don't worry, we'll find you.
Not knowing where they are, Dr. Amari says the sole survivor should follow the Freedom Trail, a code phrase given to her by the Railroad should she ever need them. That clue will help the sole survivor find them. Going to a monument, the sole survivor follows a red line, which is the Freedom Trail, and comes to an old church, and defeating the ghouls inside the tunnels underneath it, he finds the Railroad headquarters. He is forced to explain himself to 3 of the Railroad members, one of whom is their leader called Desdemona. He tells them he has a Corsair chip, and they are very impressed that the sole survivor was able to take down a Corsair single-handedly. Some guy called Deacon shows up and vouches for the survivor, so Desdemona's suspicions are quelled. She explains that the Railroad are the synth's only friends. Satisfied that he in fact does not work for the Institute, they let him into their headquarters. Inside, Desdemona says that they'll help crack the code on the chip, but that in return they get to keep it afterwards for the technology advancements that the chip contains within it, as they feel they could use it to save the synths. With no other choice but to agree to this exchange, the chip is given to the Railroad's tech genius Tinker Tom. With the chip decoded, Desdemona says they would be interested in working with the sole survivor further, but for now, with the code in his possession, he heads back to speak with Virgil in the glowing sea. Virgil doesn't speak too highly of the Railroad, calling them kooks, and says he's surprised they're not trying to liberate vending machines. The sole survivor is handed a drawn diagram by Virgil, which looks like it was drawn by a 5-year-old. Essentially, the survivor will need to build a device that hijacks the signal the Institute uses to teleport Corsairs, so that it sends him instead. The carrier signal for the relay is one that plays classical music. Virgil reminds the sole survivor of their agreement to find the serum for Virgil when inside the Institute. If the sole survivor wants to build the device, he's going to have to turn to one of the 3 factions he's met during his search for Sean: the Railroad, the Minutemen, or the Brotherhood of Steel. If speaking with the Railroad, Desdemona is excited about this, as it means they could get into the Institute and liberate the synths there, believing them to be prisoners of the Institute. Telling the survivor to speak with Tinker Tom, he looks at Virgil's terribly drawn schematic and gives the survivor a shopping list of items to get. If going with the Minutemen, the sole survivor can speak with their engineer Sturgis. He too gives the survivor a shopping list of things to find. But lastly, if using the Brotherhood for help, the sole survivor, after helping them fend off a large ghoul attack at the Cambridge police station, will meet Paladin Dance. If the survivor assists Dance in finding a satellite transmitter and finding out just how much Dance and the Brotherhood hate synths and the Institute, he is offered the chance to join the Brotherhood, and if accepting, he'll be granted the rank of Initiate. At some point, Dance will decide it's time for them to go to the massive airship that the sole survivor saw earlier on. The airship is called the Pridwin, so after meeting Scribe Halen and Knight Reese and helping them with some jobs, they head to the ship via Vertibird. There, the sole survivor speaks with Elder Maxson, who has just given a long speech on why it is that they are there: to destroy the Institute. Maxson is the supreme commander of this division of the Brotherhood of Steel, this division being the East Coast Brotherhood. Impressed with the sole survivor's work so far in helping them with their various problems, Maxson promotes him to the rank of Knight. This means that the sole survivor gets his very own suit of power armor. Being shown the plan for the device, Maxson won't help just yet, but he meets a number of other crew members and most of them give him odd jobs to do. He also collects his new power armor. A few more missions later, including one where they take out a behemoth that's in the way of a stockpile of Fat Man shells, Maxson is finally ready to discuss going after the Institute. So the Brotherhood are there because of a unique energy reading that's been picked up by Dance's recon team at the police station. It's the Institute's relay. They want in. He directs the survivor to Proctor Ingram, who, you guessed it, gives the survivor a list of items he'll need in order to build a device. Whoever the survivor chooses to enlist to help him, they end up creating the device, and it's ready. But Maxson wants him to do something for them whilst he's inside. To bring back a scientist that was with the Brotherhood but is now working for the Institute. Her name, Dr. Madison Lee. Yet after her work on Project Purity and working for the Brotherhood, she exiled herself and arrived there in the Commonwealth, contacting the Institute not long afterwards. Ingram also wants something done. She gives the survivor a holotape, and once in the Institute, he is to scan their network. Stepping onto the platform, the survivor is delighted to see that the device worked. He is now inside the Institute. Almost immediately, he hears the voice of someone that calls himself the Father, the leader of the Institute. He says that he has been expecting the sole survivor. Heading down via the elevator, the Institute is something else. Pristine and spotless. How has this been underneath the Commonwealth for so long? The Father says they've dedicated themselves to the survival of humanity for over 100 years. Stepping into a room, he sees a young boy behind some glass. It's Sean. He of course does not know who the sole survivor is, and he calls for the help of the Father. The Father walks in, and to the survivor's surprise, this Sean is just a synth, a prototype. The Father introduces himself and drops a bombshell, that he is Sean, the survivor's son. The sole survivor had no concept of the passage of time. He wasn't aware that when he was put back into cryosleep the second time, 60 years had passed. Sean had been raised by the Institute and is now their leader. After asking some questions about Sean's mother, Kellogg, and the Institute, he tells the sole survivor he wants him to stay there in the Institute, to live there and to work together. Before deciding on what to do, he meets the various scientists and staff working there at the Institute, one of whom is Dr. Lee. She places a Corsair chip in his Pip-Boy which can send him to and from the Institute whenever he likes. He is also able to keep his promise to Virgil by obtaining the experimental serum and giving it to him, and he reverts back to his normal state. But the truth now is that the sole survivor has a choice to make. Whose cause does he support? The war of the Commonwealth with the Brotherhood, the vast scientific advancements of the Institute, the synth-sympathetic cause of the Railroad, or the more neutral Minutemen who just want to help people survive the dangers of the Commonwealth? He cannot appease them all, which means making enemies of some of these factions, but let's stick with the Institute for the time being. After meeting more of the key scientists and researchers at the Institute, the survivor meets with the Father, Sean, who says that the Institute have a problem. Synths can become dangerous without proper supervision. A rogue synth has taken over a raider gang at a raider settlement called Libertalia. With the synth's memory of the Institute erased, the synth genuinely believes that he's a man by the name of Gabriel. The survivor goes to Libertalia and meets with an Institute Corsair. When approaching Libertalia, though, they are ambushed by members of the Enclave, a faction who believe themselves to be what remains of the US government. Moving through the Libertalia flotilla, they ascend the main structure and confront Gabriel, with the survivor saying the synth's shutdown code, or destroying him. Gabriel is taken back to the Institute by the Corsair, and the survivor heads back there too. Reporting back to Sean, he tells the survivor that he now has his very own quarters there in the Institute, and checking them out, the Corsair that was with him on the Libertalia flotilla tells him that Sean wishes to speak to him again. Sean says that someone has stolen from the Institute and they need to react. He says that the Railroad have acquired a number of synths from the Institute and are synths that have gone missing. The Railroad, in line with their goals, mean to free these synths as they see them as sentient beings. Basically, the Railroad have Institute technology and it needs to be taken back. So the survivor needs to go to a small settlement called Bunker Hill, an old monument. Reaching Bunker Hill, the place is a battleground, as other factions will be there depending on whether or not the survivor warned both the Railroad and the Brotherhood about the Institute's intentions. But again, for story's sake, let's just say the survivor allies with the Institute. The sole survivor, along with the synths and Corsairs, fight their way inside the monument and encounter the synths who beg for mercy. The survivor can destroy the synths or set them free, but for the sake of this story path, resets them and sends them back to the Institute. Meeting Sean on the roof of the CIT building, he says that the Commonwealth is dead and that the only future for humanity lies below in the Institute. He considers now that he was not kidnapped by the Institute, that he was rescued by them, such as the volatile nature of the surface. He explains that he was taken by the Institute because of his uncorrupted DNA. He would have had no mutations to his DNA thanks to not being exposed to radiation. Kellogg called the survivor the backup because they'd be back to take him to the Institute if something happened to Sean. He also reveals that he had the survivor released from Vault 111 when the time was right. All planned. After this, they return to the Institute for a directorate meeting. During the meeting, in which the directors of the Institute talk about the unrest on the surface and their different areas of research, the father mentions Phase 3 and elaborates that this Phase 3 relates to power. They need more raw power as the Institute's size is ever increasing. They need to activate their nuclear reactor, which will be able to power the Institute forever. Dr. Ao, who is the current but temporary head of the Synth Retention Bureau, objects to the survivor helping them with this task, but the father reminds Ao that they'd previously relied on Kellogg for these types of ops, but he's now dead. The father then decides to announce something that, well, it doesn't really sit that well with the others.
Now, there is one more subject that requires discussion.
I don't know that this is the time.
Dr. Holdren, it is time. Please. As I'm sure several of you are already aware, I have been under Dr. Volkert's care for some time. I'm sorry, this is difficult for me. Our best efforts have failed. Every experimental treatment we could devise has been unsuccessful. I'm sorry to say I am dying.
No, can't be
Please,
serious.
everyone, please. I am sorry. This is not how I wanted to tell you, but we're running out of time.
You're dying?
I'm afraid so. A very aggressive form of cancer. Believe me when I say we've done everything we can. We can talk more later. Right now, the future of the Institute is at stake. The Institute cannot survive without leadership. The Directorate must continue to govern with the best interest of all in mind. To that end, I am naming my father as my successor.
Oh, boy.
You can't be serious.
Really?
How can you possibly justify this? He isn't one of us. He isn't even a scientist.
Ignoring your borderline, insubordinate tone, I will simply say this. The Institute has enough scientists. What it needs is a leader. I believe my father has already proven himself more than capable in that regard. This will conclude this meeting. Thank you.
With that bombshell dropped, the father apologizes for assuming that the survivor would take charge of the Institute without asking, but he needs him to take care of this latest operation and tells him to seek out a Dr. Fillmore. Speaking with her, she says that they need some pre-war technology from what used to be a power utility company called Mass Fusion. They have something called a beryllium agitator. Using the relay to go to the Mass Fusion building, the survivor has now made himself an enemy of the Brotherhood of Steel, and their forces are there as they are also after the agitator. It'll be clear what they need it for later in the video. But anyway, the survivor and Dr. Fillmore fight their way to the reactor level, and the survivor, donning a hazmat suit to combat the high rads inside the reactor, grabs the agitator and they both leave the building, heading back to the Institute. Reporting back in with the father, he says that there are concerns about where the sole survivor's loyalties lie, but that by fighting for the Institute against the Brotherhood, some of those initial concerns have been eased. A situation has come up though, and it's one that needs attention. Whilst the survivor and Dr. Fillmore were at the Mass Fusion building, a team had been sent out to invite someone from the Commonwealth to join the Institute. That person called for help, and those he called were the Minutemen. He and the team the Institute sent are currently pinned inside a house in the Commonwealth. They need for the survivor to go there and speak with the Minutemen. And remember, at some point in the story, the survivor potentially becomes the Minutemen's general. This man in the house is important as he's a theoretical physicist and can help them get their nuclear reactor running. Getting there, the Minutemen leading this assault say that they could use the backup, but the general, in keeping with the Institute's wishes, tells them to back down, and since he's their general, they reluctantly do so. Entering the house, the general speaks with the man, Wallace, and he agrees, albeit reluctantly, to go with the scientists to the Institute to work for them. With Wallace on board, preparations for the reactor are now ready. For now though, the Institute needs to announce their presence to the Commonwealth, and the survivor, as the new director, records a message to the Commonwealth telling them not to interfere with their plans. After this message has been delivered, the father says that in order to broadcast it, the survivor needs to secure adequate broadcasting power, so going to Diamond City, he fixes the radio there and the message is broadcasted to the Commonwealth. Speaking with the father on the reactor level, it's time, and they activate it. This has now put the Institute in a great place going forward. However, this isn't it. There's more work to be done to secure the future of the Institute. Another meeting is called, and the survivor is to lead it. The directors mention that there are groups in the Commonwealth that are in opposition to the Institute's goals. Essentially, they've decided that the Brotherhood, or at least their presence here in the Commonwealth, need to be eliminated. Speaking with the father once more, he reveals that more doubts have arisen in regard to the survivor's involvement with the railroad, so they've got to go too. After, the survivor goes to the railroad headquarters and takes out Desdemona along with the other railroad members. Sean, meanwhile, is now bedridden and in the final stages of life. Sean tells his father to focus on the future. They then say their goodbyes to one another, and Sean passes away. The Institute path ends here. What we'll do now is cover the other 3 factions' endings in one final section, as it's pretty similar for those 3 remaining factions, so let's start with the Railroad Path. If choosing to work alongside the railroad, Desdemona directs him towards Deacon. He says that Desdemona wants him to make the survivor what they call a tourist, which is someone who just helps out. Deacon considers this a waste, as the survivor has already shown exceptional capabilities. He has a plan to convince Desdemona to allow the survivor to join the railroad. He has the job they need doing, so agrees to meet the survivor by an old freeway. Meeting Deacon, the survivor almost doesn't recognize him as he's in disguise. He says that he occasionally changes his body and his face to keep the railroad's enemies guessing. Anyway, they are there because the railroad's old HQ, which was underneath a donut shop, got raided by Institute forces, and they left something pretty important behind. They're off to go and grab it. Moving along the freeway, they meet another of the railroad's tourists. This guy, named Ricky Dalton, asks for a code phrase, and using it, Ricky tells them the old donut shop is crawling with Institute synths. There are mines everywhere, so the survivor and Deacon head inside. Dealing with the synths there after heading in through the escape tunnel, they get what they came for, a prototype developed by one of the railroad members, a Dr. Carrington, but no one really knows what it's for. Returning to the railroad headquarters, Deacon is bigging up the sole survivor, making him sound like a hero, so that Desdemona invites him to join the railroad. Deacon finally gets what he wants, and Desdemona welcomes the survivor to the faction. A little later on, after the survivor has been able to make their way into the Institute, Desdemona tells the sole survivor about someone they call Patriot, someone inside the Institute who helps synths escape. They never met this person, but dozens of synths have escaped thanks to them. Speaking with Tinker Tom, he gives the survivor an encrypted holotape to take back to the belly of the beast, the Institute. Doing so and executing what's on it, Patriot replies with a meeting place. Meeting him, he's a young man named Liam Binet. Impressed with how Tinker Tom managed to crack his encryption key, Liam is very excited to hear that it's the railroad that have made contact with him. Liam says that the synths are just like humans but without any freedoms. He's been freeing them one by one, but wants to attempt to engineer a mass escape. Meeting a maintenance synth, designated Z114, he says there are 13 synths that want to escape. The problem lies in how to get them all to the teleporter. The tunnels are sealed by the Synth Retention Bureau, so the focus needs to be on getting these doors to the tunnels open. Seeing as the security systems haven't really changed since the Great War, all Liam will need is a security password from an old terminal on the surface in order to override the security system so he can get the doors open. So, getting information from the railroad on where one could find these credentials, their robot called Pam is able to scan the systems and find details for a Wilfred Bergman, who was the co-owner of a place called Cambridge Polymer Labs. Going to Polymer Labs and being tricked and locked in by a crafty Mr. Handybot called Molly, the survivor is able to find the credentials they were looking for. Back with Desdemona at Railroad headquarters, she thinks they should use this chance to save every single synth from the Institute, not just the 13. Manpower will be an issue against the Institute, so she says to speak with Z114 and convince him that the synths need to fight alongside them to earn their freedom. Z14 has doubts that Liam's original plan will even work, so the suggestion of rescuing all the synths goes down well as you'd expect. He does say though that he would be willing, along with a few others, to take up arms. They agree to keep Liam out of the loop for now, as it'll be his people that they'll be fighting. In the meantime, the survivor gives Liam the credentials he wanted. He says that if he even gets a hint that the railroad are planning to hurt people, he'll pull the plug. Meeting Z114 a day later, he says that many synths have volunteered to fight, but they are going to need weapons. There are a load of mining materials they can use to make their own weaponry, and the survivor helps secure these materials. Speaking with Z114 one more time, he tells the survivor that he needs to maintain his cover in working with the Institute. They will need time to assemble all the weapons they need. Sometime later, and during the Directorate meeting in which it's decided the Brotherhood must be eliminated, one of these synths speaks with the survivor and gives him a code phrase, which indicates that it's now time to act, and time for the synth's freedom. Meeting with Z114, he says that the time to act is now, as the Brotherhood has discovered the location of the railroad headquarters. Immediately travelling to warn the railroad, whilst doing so the Brotherhood arrive and a gunfight ensues. helping defend the railroad against the Brotherhood threat, and despite the railroad suffering catastrophic losses, the Brotherhood are repelled, for now, but Desdemona rightly says that they need to destroy the Brotherhood now before they can strike again. Heading to the Cambridge police station with Tinker, Tom and Deacon, they take out the forces there and fly a vertibird straight to the Prydwen. They dock it, as the Brotherhood foolishly allow them to, and the survivor runs into the Prydwen, attaches charges to the Prydwen's weak points, boards the vertibird, and boom. The Prydwen falls to the ground below. This sect of the Brotherhood is finished. Speaking with Desdemona back at the Railroad HQ, she is now concerned that the Synth Retention Bureau are not far behind. They need to attack the Institute now. The survivor goes back to the Institute and secures the relay, making him an enemy of the Institute. Meeting with Desdemona and the Synths there, they get ready to head into the Institute itself. But we're going to pause this path here and discuss the Brotherhood Path next. If returning to the Prydwen after reaching the Institute and convincing Dr. Lee to rejoin the Brotherhood, the survivor reports back to Maxson, who is pleased with the work the sole survivor did. Having scanned the network, he also gives the holotape back to Ingram, and the hope is that it will reveal a weakness in the Institute's defences. She then informs him of another project or mission that the Brotherhood are undertaking. It's been top secret up until now. She leads him to what remains of Liberty Prime, the massive robot that the Brotherhood used in the Capitol Wasteland against their rival military organisation, the Enclave. To get Prime operational, they need to repair his power system, and thanks to Dr. Lee being back with the Brotherhood, she agrees to help them complete the repairs needed in order to get the massive robot moving. Dr. Lee says that thankfully the damage to Prime's CPU is not irreversible, and she can fix the issue they're having with the power. In the meantime, the survivor is to build some crucial parts. Prime's electromagnetic actuators, which will help move his arms and legs. Retrieving another parts list, thankfully most of the stuff is there at the airport, the survivor is to go and retrieve a high-powered magnet. So travelling to Milton General Hospital and fighting his way through it, he retrieves the magnet. Building the actuators, they are missing one more thing. There's nukes. One of Prime's key weapon systems. So going to the Glowing Sea again, the survivor heads into a military nuclear weapons storage facility codenamed Sentinel Site Prescott. There are plenty of enemies to fight here, but one person the survivor meets is a man named Henry. He's a member of a cult that worships their god, Atom. They view nuclear weapons as the manifestation of their deity and consider radiation the power of this deity. Henry and the children of Atom are guarding this place as they believe it's a holy site. More on them and their story later, but convincing Henry to step aside peacefully or by a show of force, the survivor ends up finding the weapons Prime needs. With the nukes airlifted out of there, the survivor reports back to Ingram. After a few final adjustments, Prime is ready to go. Booting it up, he's online again, and is ready to kick in the Institute's front door. Reporting back to Maxson, there's a problem. He aggressively demands that the survivor come clean. The holotape Ingram had the survivor obtain of the network of the Institute contained a list of missing synths that had escaped from the facility. So you know how much the Brotherhood hates synths? Well, it appears that one of their own is a synth, Paladin Dance. Dance has now gone AWOL, and the Maxson is accusing the survivor of him knowing about Dance being a synth all along.
After everything I've done for the Brotherhood, you have some nerve accusing me of lying.
Your outburst leads me to believe I've misjudged you.
Maxson orders the survivor to track down and execute Paladin Dance. Speaking with Proctor Quinlan, he says that Dance could be anywhere, which makes Quinlan absolutely useless, as he suggests searching every single location Dance has ever visited in the Commonwealth. Thankfully, Scribe Halen, who is very close to Dance, storms in, and she doesn't believe Dance is a synth. Not for a second. Speaking with her privately, she asks the survivor to at least hear him out before making his decision to execute him. Agreeing to at least hear him out, she tells the survivor that she believes he's hiding out at an old pre-war listening post used by the US military. Setting off, the survivor arrives, and sure enough, he finds Dance there. Hearing him out, Dance says that he didn't know what he was, until Quinlan found out. He's always thought synths were the enemy, and Dance says that he's accepting that he is a synth that needs to be destroyed, and that if the survivor betrays his orders, he's betraying Maxson and the Brotherhood itself. After hearing him out, the survivor can choose to execute Dance, to spare him, or to let him do the job himself. If convincing Dance that he does not need to die, Maxson will be waiting for them both outside the building when they leave. It takes some doing, but Maxson can be convinced to let the whole Dance is a machine thing lie, and agrees to let him live. After saying goodbye to Dance, and now back on the Prydwen, Maxson grants the survivor the rank of Paladin. He tells the survivor that he needs to report to Lancer Captain Kells for his next assignment. Doing so, Kells says that before they can attack the Institute, they need to deal with the railroad, as they pose enough of a threat to disrupt the Brotherhood's operation. They have sympathies towards synths, so they've got to go. So Kells gives the Survivor 5 targets that the Brotherhood believes will cause failure within their chain of command. They all need to die, according to Kells. Ingram states that the Brotherhood wants the railroad robot Pam, as its primary function of predicting future events would be very beneficial to the Institute. They cannot let them have it, so they want the Survivor to rewrite it so Proctor Quinlan can use it. Going to the old church, the railroad headquarters, the Survivor takes out the 5 targets: Dr. Carrington, Glory, Deacon, Tinker Tom, and Desdemona. With these 5 dead, this has seriously weakened the railroad. Finally, the Survivor is to reprogram Pam using a decryption holotape and goes back to the Prydwen. Reporting to Proctor Ingram, it's almost time to take Liberty Prime out for a spin. They need the beryllium agitator first though, and this is the final piece. Ingram speaks of a company called Mass Fusion who, as we learned, were a pre-war power utility company. Unlike the condescending Dr. Fillmore at the Institute, Ingram shares a bit about the agitator. The Mass Fusion's CEO was an inventor, and it was he who created the beryllium agitator. It's there at Mass Fusion headquarters, so they need to go and get it. Taking the vertibird to Mass Fusion, as expected, there's a heavy synth presence. Making their way through the synth forces in the building, they descend to the reactor level and find the agitator there, before returning to the Prydwen with their loot. Installing the agitator onto Liberty Prime, the Survivor, along with other Brotherhood forces, escort Liberty Prime all the way to the Commonwealth Institute of Technology, where they all engage Institute synth forces. Blowing a hole in the ground, the Brotherhood drop through it, entering the Institute and speaking with Maxson. He says that their next target there is the reactor, and to kill anything or anyone that stands in their way. As we did previously, we'll hang fire here and discuss the next path, so let's move on to the final path, the Minutemen. Shortly after they arrived at Sanctuary, visiting Preston Garvey, he asks for a favour, saying that a settlement needs their help. Raiders have been attacking the settlement, so the sole survivor can go there and help out. After helping out more settlements, Preston Garvey tells the Survivor that they intend to take back an old castle they used to hold called Fort Independence. It was abandoned by the group after some sort of monster came out of the sea and destroyed the fort, along with killing a load of the Minutemen's leaders. It has a radio tower they could use to broadcast the Minutemen's vital message across the Commonwealth. Heading east to the castle, they scope it out and take out a load of pesky Mirelurks. But these Mirelurks have a queen, and she's not very happy. This is the monster that emerged from the sea. She attacks the castle, but using a lot of firepower, the Minutemen are able to take her down. After this, they get the radio beacon working again, and once again, the message of the Minutemen is being heard across the Commonwealth. Sometime later, at the castle, the Survivor meets Ronnie Shaw. She was a member of the Minutemen quite a while ago and served under a General Becker. She was eager to meet the new general, the Survivor, and she offers her help there. She mentions the castle has an armory, but the large door is locked and they need to find another way in so they can open it from the inside. Finding a way in and disabling the security inside, they find the remains of a General McCann, and the Survivor is rewarded with the Minuteman's general uniform. But they do find what they were looking for: firepower, and lots of it. Artillery cannons, which will come in very handy. After some fun in testing these cannons out, the Survivor gave Preston Garvey the good news. At some point when siding with other factions, or if flat out attacking people in the Institute, the Survivor will be banished from it and is unable to teleport inside. Next, in order to obtain intelligence on the Institute, the Survivor will need the holotape which contains all the data on it. If that's with another faction, the sole Survivor will need to forcefully take it from them. Now, the Minutemen don't outright hate the Institute, but are willing to assist the Survivor, as they are wary of the Institute snatching people and replacing them with synths. After obtaining the holotape and giving it to Sturgis, he digs into the data, but there's another issue that needs dealing with. In retaliation for the Minutemen foiling their plan to abduct Wallace, the theoretical physicist, there's the possibility of the Institute attacking the castle, as they've been spotted scouting the perimeter. Heading over there and speaking with Ronnie, the Survivor sets up some defences, and the Minutemen fight off wave after wave of Institute synths and coursers. It's a long and tough battle, but eventually the Institute attackers retreat. After, Ronnie says that she wants to join the Minutemen in their attack on the Institute, and Preston says Sturgis found a way in through hidden tunnels which contain cooling water for the reactor inside the Institute. Making his way through these ghoul-infested tunnels that Sturgis found, the sole Survivor is finally inside the Institute. Activating the relay, the other Minutemen arrive, and they prepare for their assault. But now we've got to the point that the endings play out. Fighting his way to the Institute's nuclear reactor, alongside the Railroad, the Brotherhood, or the Minutemen, they reach it and the survivor places an explosive charge onto the nuclear reactor. Whilst there, the survivor can have one final conversation with Sean. Preston Garvey also wanted the Institute scientists to be able to evacuate the Institute too, so the survivor has the option to issue an evacuation order to prevent the deaths of human beings. And 10-year-old Synth Sean is there too and wants to go with the survivor, so he has the choice to allow him to do so. He then teleports out of there with the respective leader, be that Desdemona, Elder Maxson or Preston Garvey, and flips a switch where they witness the complete and total destruction of the Institute. The game then ends with the sole survivor reflecting on their journey since leaving Vault 111 and what is next. The game then ends, but we've still got a lot to cover in terms of the goings on in the Commonwealth, so let's start with the Institute. When the bombs fell in October 2077, the students and teachers at CIT headed underground, and the children of those survivors founded the Institute. The Institute as a whole is the work of generations of scientists. It used to simply be the basement of the Commonwealth Institute of Technology, and it's just been built up from that. They still aim to build on it, and are always finding new tunnels so they can expand. The Institute genuinely believe they are the saviors of mankind, and that because things above ground are unstable, they'll be the ones to save everyone. They wanted to create synths, and this birthed the first generation of synths, and they wanted to create their own government. But what started as a plan for peace with the people of the Commonwealth quickly turned to animosity. So the Institute created the molecular relay and sealed themselves off from the rest of the Commonwealth. The Institute are extremely secretive, move in the shadows with their motto being mankind redefined, but what do they mean by that exactly? Well, it all comes down to the synths. First generation synths were to be used for labour within the Institute, and then came second generation synths. These are more human-like than the Gen 1s, and are used in excursions to the surface for scavenging, and they would scout and report back to the Institute about things happening in the Commonwealth. Now, the Institute would use FEV, the Forced Evolutionary Virus, to attempt to create synths too. I covered it in my Fallout 3 video, but the short version for those who aren't aware, the FEV was initially created by a company called Westtech back in 2075, and the intention was for it to be a cure for potential plague and Chinese bioweapons. All it did though was create mutants, such as centaurs and of course, super mutants. Dr. Brian Virgil wanted the program shut down, but Sean, the father, would not have it, so Virgil acted.
My requests to shut down the FEV program have repeatedly been denied. We've learned nothing useful in the last 10 years. Why does Father insist on continuing it? If he won't see reason, then I have to take matters into my own hands. What we're doing, it's not right. It needs to stop. If anyone should find this after I'm gone, know that I never wanted to hurt anyone. Anyone! Do you understand me? I'm gonna make sure the whole program is shut down. If not for good, then at least for years to come. After that, I know what I'm about to do will be seen as a betrayal. Treason, he'll probably call it. So, I'm leaving.
2 prototypes were created and would be different from one another, in that one was to be developed through lived experiences and the other was to be implanted with a brain scan of a pre-war individual. However, these 2 prototypes managed to escape the Institute. More on them a bit later, but production would eventually start on the Gen 3s and one was sent out for field testing. In one of her articles, Piper talks about the broken mask, when a traveller to Diamond City, Mr. Carter, sat down at the bar in the city and his cheek started twitching. He then pulled the gun and shot the barman, Henry, killing him, along with other citizens. Mr. Carter was put down by Diamond City security, but they found that he was filled with plastic and metal. They realised that he was a synthetic, created by the Institute. But it wouldn't end there, as more synths would end up attacking settlements in the Commonwealth. Settlements tried at one point to come together and to form the Commonwealth Provisional Government, but this never got off the ground, because of the Institute.
The Commonwealth Provisional Government. Years back, a group of settlements tried to get together and form a coalition. Every settlement with even a hint of clout sent representatives to try and hash out an agreement. Only the Institute sent a representative of their own, a synth. The man killed every rep at the talks. The Commonwealth Provisional Government was over before it even got off the ground.
So these synths are pretty brutal. Due to their nature, they have been known to murder entire settlements just for scrap and parts. Then came the Gen 3s, and this was the tipping point. the final straw for lots of people in the Commonwealth. But then, of course, the Institute became aware of Sean, a vault-dwelling infant whose DNA would be uncorrupted. It was pure, and as we saw, Conrad Kellogg took him from the cryopod and to the Institute. Suddenly, the Gen 3 synth project started to gather real pace, with Sean's DNA becoming the basis for the Gen 3s, making him the father of the synth family. The new Gen 3s would be produced, and they were pretty much indistinguishable from real human beings, even having lab-produced bones, organs, and muscle, only they'd have a synth implant or component inside their brains. A neurological implant that allowed these Gen 3s to be programmed and even reset with a code phrase. From the outside at least, these synths were human. The synths even think that they are human, which is why the Railroad see them as slaves, basically. Although the Railroad were quite divided on how they saw the Gen 1s and 2s.
What's there to be divided about?
Everyone wants to liberate the Gen 3s, the human-looking synths. Some of the synths in the Railroad, like Glory, think we should help earlier models too. But Gen 1s are basically the same as, well, a Protectron, so the line gets muddy. Do we defend AI rights? Terminals? Hell, turrets? Anytime it gets brought up, fireworks. All the old arguments flare up. The upshot is Glory and some others won't run missions like this.
But anyway, what did the Institute intend to do with these Gen 3 synths? We hear quite early on in the story whispers of the Institute. Piper's younger sister, Nat, says that the Institute can grab you in the night and that they've done so repeatedly. But this reputation the Institute have earned doesn't exactly come out of thin air. They'd been kidnapping people and turning them into synths, with many people none the wiser. But some were suspicious and they'd be vocal about this. But why were the Institute kidnapping and replacing these people with the synth versions of themselves? Well, for their experiments on FEV, and so they could exert control over the Commonwealth. Since these synths could be controlled, why not put them in control of certain settlements to divert the suspicion away from the Institute when people would inquire about the kidnappings? We find out during one of the sole survivors' jaunts to the Institute that McDonough, the mayor of Diamond City, is a synth, which is why he's instructing his security team not to do anything about the kidnappings because he is there in Diamond City, planted by the Institute. That is why Piper from Public Occurrences was not on McDonough's Christmas card list, due to the fact that she was writing inflammatory articles about him and the Institute. After the Institute is destroyed, if it is, then the citizens find out that McDonough is an Institute synth, with the guard, Danny, being shot, and McDonough having taken Geneva hostage, and McDonough ends up being put down. Despite the kidnappings and replacements though, Sean wanted to correct the perception on the surface that the Institute intends to do harm to mankind. But the people on the surface are very edgy. We can see a citizen of Goodneighbor get gunned down by the neighborhood watch, because he too is a synth. Another is Roger Warwick, a man who ran a homestead and was replaced with a synth, because the Institute wanted to see how genetically modified seed could yield crops on the surface, and then synth Roger would collect the research data and destroy any evidence. His family would be none the wiser as to the fact that he was a synth. There are many more synth replacements on the surface, and shockingly, Sturgis is one of these Gen 3 synths. The sole survivor can even come across two identical men, both claiming to be called Art, claiming to be the real one, with the sole survivor having to try and determine which Art is the real Art. One problem that the Institute was having though was that synths were developing free will, which is something else we saw in the game. When they'd set them loose on the surface, they'd become unpredictable, which leads us to the Synth Retention Bureau. The SRB was previously led by Dr. Zimmer, who had journeyed to the capital wasteland after they had reports of a missing android being there. He'd ended up in Rivet City where the Lone Wanderer would assist him in tracking down the android, but Zimmer is currently missing. A Dr. Justin Ayo is now in charge of the Synth Retention Bureau, and their job is to recover any escaped synths that are hiding amongst the population up on the surface. The Institute does not know why the synths want to escape, as they are machines. It baffles them. As seen in the story, there are Institute hunters known as Coursers, and we meet one early-ish in the game when attempting to get a Corsair chip, and after killing Corsair Z2, we can meet one of the synths that had escaped the Institute calling herself Jenny. We meet more, as seen in the synth retention missions where recall codes are spoken to the synths out loud, and this puts them into a shut-down state, wiping their memories and therefore rendering it inactive. They are taken back to the Institute and rewired. Of course, as we learn from the Brotherhood mission path, Paladin Dance was a synth too. But let's now move on and discuss Arcadia. So Nick is a prototype synth, He was created sometime between the second and third generation of synths, but he says that he's never seen another synth like himself, and he does get brief glimpses of his past, so to speak. And that wasn't until the trip to Far Harbour. Upon listening to the Valentine's Detective Agency radio signal, the traveller speaks to Ellie as to what he'd heard, and she mentions a case that's come in from a fisherman who lives on the edge of the Commonwealth called Kenji Nakano. Going to see him with Nick, both Kenji and his wife Rei say that their daughter Kasumi has gone missing. Finding clues scattered about the place, they discover that she's gone to a place called Far Harbour after she'd fixed a radio and heard something on it.
Project log? Myself. I never really thought about who or what I am, but God, where do I start? The radio. I was right about the range. I managed to get a signal, a strong signal, from up north. There's a group of people up there. They say they're all synths, synthetic people, made by the Institute. They are trying to build a place for their kind, where they can be themselves and be accepted for what they are alongside human beings. It sounds wonderful, but then they started asking about me, and some questions came up. Questions I don't have answers to. I mean, I've always felt off, like I'm not really supposed to be here, but then there are things in my childhood I can't remember, and I've been having strange dreams. I'm going to go to meet these synths. I have to know the truth about myself. They've told me to sail up north to a town called Far Harbour. I can make my way to them from there.
The survivor can also ask Kenji and Rei if Kasumi is a synth, to which they vehemently deny her being so, with Rei saying that she gave birth to her. Now, although Far Harbour is starting out with a missing persons case, it's not the main focus of this section. After using Kenji's boat, they arrive in Far Harbour and arrive in the dock. Meeting the lady who's in charge of the harbour, Captain Avery, they are soon called to help defend it from a load of creatures. Speaking with Captain Avery afterwards, she says that the mysterious fog that is covering the area affects people on the island. It's radioactive, but there are parts of it that are called the deep fog. They use fog condensers there in order to keep the fog at bay and away from their small town. A man shows up, Alan Lee, and says that the fog is the fault of the children of Atom. It seems that they too have a presence on the island, and the people here aren't too fond of them. The truth is that there's a hatred there, as the children had sent a missionary to Far Harbour and claimed that it was Atom's will that the fog caused the islanders to lose their land, and that lots of their friends had died. Alan shot the guy when this happened, but he claimed that the preacher went for his weapon, but no one buys that story. Ever since this happened, there's been tension. Despite Avery's protestations, the fog is getting more lethal every year, according to Alan. Anyway, in the harbour's bar, the survivor meets a man named Old Longfellow, a fearless hunter, and he says that the fog condensers were made for the harbour men by the synths up at Arcadia, the name of the synth commune, so he doesn't really mind them. Buying him some whiskey as payment, Old Longfellow takes them via the mountain path to Arcadia. On the way, a child of Atom is there, and she said that Arcadia is a nest of snakes, or beasts that are a hindrance to Atom's will. What she means is that the children of Atom see the fog as Atom's holy fog, and therefore are of the opinion that by providing the harbour with the means to repel the fog, they are somehow stopping what Atom wants. She says that Atom has claimed this land for his children, and invites the survivor to the nucleus, the base of the children of Atom here, and he will have to undertake a ritual. Arriving at Arcadia, which is free of the fog, Old Longfellow departs and the survivor and Nick enter, where they find a synth there called Dima. And the survivor explains that he's there for Kasumi Nakano, but things are about to get pretty heavy, for Nick at least. Turns out that Dima and Nick are the two Institute prototypes that had escaped all those years ago. They were used in an experiment to see how their brains processed and handled feelings and emotions. Nick was the synth that had another personality transferred into him, therefore that is the reason he doesn't really remember anything. Dima explains that he's the one that helped him escape, as he hated having to see him waking up repeatedly not knowing who he was, and says that they are pretty much brothers. Nick doesn't want to believe it, not even believing that synths can be family. Dima then scrambles the survivor's brain a bit by asking if he knows if he is a synth or not, and asks him about his memories prior to the day the bombs fell, but he can't recall anything. Moving swiftly on, they go to find Kasumi. Speaking with Kasumi, she genuinely believes that she is a synth and wants to stay there at the refuge. However, she does mention that there's something wrong at Arcadia. There's a bit more going on here than it just being a refuge. There's a big secret to the island, and she wants the survivor and Nick to find out what that is. She mentions the big computers that Dima is hooked up to, and she thinks that they hold old memories or offloaded data from his brain. His past memories, as he can only store so much data. She did some repairs on the computers, and she said there's around a century's worth of life experiences on there. She saw data models on there that Dima himself had made, such as the fog taking over Far Harbour completely, and a nuclear detonation on the island along with the total number of projected casualties. But why does he have these plans? Well, we need to find out whether he actually plans to do these things. There are a number of ways to attain a lead for this, but one way is eavesdropping a very secret meeting between Dima, a scientist called Faraday, and a former Institute Corsair by the name of Chase. It seems that Dima actually believes that both Far Harbour and the Children of Atom have the right to exist on this island. But as Chase points out, the two sides are pretty much about to go to war against one another, and she says they need to pick a side. She also makes mention of the Children of Atom's base, the Nucleus, a very old submarine with nuclear launch capabilities. Dima says the Children have always accepted the synths, and that the Children's previous confessor, Martin, was a friend of his. The new confessor is a bad person though, and unstable, as he keeps on threatening the synths for helping Far Harbour. The situation is volatile. Finally, Faraday mentions Dima's old memory banks, which are in the nuclear submarine base. He lived there himself prior to giving it to the Children of Atom. These memories are a security risk, and the synths can't go in to get them as it will be an act of war, but they can see that they may have to send Chase in to secure them. After this meeting, and after grabbing Faraday's program, which will allow the copying of the memories from the mainframe in the nucleus, Kasumi also suggests the survivor gain access to the Children of Atom's base. The survivor can confront Dima about what he's learned, and Dima is okay with this, as it's a way for him to get his memories without the risk of all-out war breaking out on the island. So the survivor begins the long trek across the island and finally makes it to the nucleus. Outside, he sees two converts being forced to undertake a loyalty test, and one shoots the other one. Approaching the man that made them do this, called Richter, the Grand Zealot, he says that in order to be worthy of joining the Children of Atom, he must undertake a challenge. He needs to drink from a spring and bring them something. Doing so, the survivor gets an almighty dose of rads and starts hallucinating. Following a ghostly figure, he is led to a shrine, and inside he receives a statue of a woman. He returns to Richter, and he's surprised when he learns that he saw a figure in the fog, with Richter calling her the mother of the fog, a holy figure. They think that Atom has chosen the sole survivor. Anyway, being given some robes, the survivor heads into the nucleus, fights his way through the many defences there, and he finds the terminal. And using it, he's to navigate the data, bringing down firewalls and allow the indexers to get out with the data, whilst hearing some of Dima's memories, such as how he managed to help Nick escape. With the memories obtained, the survivor plans his next move. If Nick is there, he's able to hear one of the memories of Dima helping him escape, but he's frustrated he isn't able to remember anything. He thinks maybe he should try and speak with Dima. Some crucial memories were found that Dima had offloaded. He'd hidden a cache somewhere on the island, and finding it, the survivor obtains a code for the wind turbines. This is for the power that keeps the fog condensers on and protecting Far Harbour. Secondly, the survivor seeks out Dima's secret medical facility at the Vim Pop factory, and fighting through many super mutants, he finds it. He finds a shallow grave, and in it is the body of Captain Avery.
Is it going to be painful?
Yes. It's going to be like having everything you are ripped out and replaced with something else. Someone else.
I'm ready. I wish I could say goodbye to everyone.
No one else can know. This isn't just about infiltrating Far Harbour. It's about becoming the human that synths drawn here need to meet. Reasonable. Willing to accept them as just another living thing. No greater or lesser than humanity itself. You'll be part of the bridge between our two worlds. That all vanishes the moment anyone discovers that it's been manufactured. That you're a synth.
Did she have to die? The woman I'm replacing? God, she looks so peaceful lying there.
Don't. Please. That blood is on my hands, not yours.
So it seems that Dima placed a synth version of Avery at Far Harbour so that he could protect his people and to prevent war breaking out on the island. Finally, the survivor seeks out a hotel in which the captain of the submarine was staying. In a safe room, the location of the nuclear launch codes can be found, and they're on a boat inside a locked container. The survivor can do whatever he wants with all this now. He can bring down Far Harbour's defences, meaning that everyone there gets massacred by the monsters from the fog. He can activate the submarine's nuclear launch, and since it's rusted into the dry dock, the launch will eradicate the children of Atom here. He can also tell Avery she's a synth, and choose whether to keep it a secret or not. If he does not, then Alan Lee will rile up the townsfolk and they'll kill a synth in the town, and will potentially storm Arcadia, killing all the synths there, including Dima and Kasumi. However, speaking to Dima, he's got another solution, for a peaceful outcome. He suggests doing exactly what he'd done before with Captain Avery, and replacing the unstable High Confessor Tectus of the Children of Atom with a synth version of him. To do this, they use old tapes featuring the previous Confessor Martin's voice, and fake a tape of Martin plotting to seize back control of the Children of Atom. Playing it for the Confessor, this tricks him by luring him to a remote location, where the survivor is supposed to kill the Confessor. But he's bought help, demanding to know where Confessor Martin is, still not knowing that the tape is a hoax. However, the sole survivor can talk Tectus into leaving the island for good, avoiding the need for more bloodshed. With this done, returning to Arcadia, Dima is there with the new synth version of Tectus, who goes to the nucleus and takes its place, telling the Children of Atom that there will be peace from now on with Far Harbour and Arcadia. Peace has been achieved. Finally, Kasumi, if still alive at this point, has decided to return home, inspired by the selfless actions of the sole survivor. She is reunited with her parents, and she knows that she is not a synth, and the case is now closed. Lastly, if the sole survivor is a member of the Brotherhood, he can tell Kells about the synth refuge, and they'll send vertibirds to the island and launch an assault of Arcadia, killing everyone there and establishing a presence on the island in the event stragglers show up. But now let's discuss the Children of Atom. We've previously seen the Children of Atom briefly in Fallout 3 in the town of Megaton, in the middle of which was an unexploded nuclear bomb that the Children of Atom worshipped, but in Fallout 4 we got a lot more information about the children. Their beliefs are that Atom struck the Earth in October 2077. They worship radiation, and they call it Atom's glow.
What can you tell me about the children's beliefs?
Our belief is in Holy Atom, who struck this world 2 centuries ago, wreathing it in his glow. That glow is the children's way out of this place. To division.
You'll have heard Grand Zealot Richter there stating that the glow is their way out of this place, and he called it division. Some other children call it the Great Divide. When coming across Henry in the Glowing Sea in the weapons storage facility, he refers to the division as the Great Divide and says that this is when their deity, Atom, will return. Henry says that the Great Divide will mean Atom's glow will spread and will birth infinite worlds from within them all.
What's division?
Release. Release of your potential. Of all the worlds locked away inside you, broken apart and reborn 1,000 times over through the glow.
What can you tell me about division?
Atom's greatest gift. Locked inside us all are billions of invisible worlds, waiting only to be touched by his glow, in order to be born anew through division. During the Great War, it was granted to many, though they certainly didn't realize it. But today it is often a slow process, taking years of exposure in order to be realized. We are all here to spend our lives seeking the promise of division, however long it may take.
They believe that absorbing radiation will eventually unlock these infinite worlds inside them. It does appear that the religion spread after the end of Project Purity in Fallout 3, and that the followers settled in the Commonwealth. In the Glowing Sea, right in the middle of the crater that itself was created by the bomb that the sole survivor and his wife saw explode, and in various pockets of the Commonwealth, including the island. Speaking with the leader of the Children of Atom in the Crater of Atom, he mentions that they went there as they saw the glow of the Crater of Atom, as if it was calling to them. Confessor Tectus also mentions that he and Confessor Martin arrived on the island at the behest of a Confessor Cromwell from Megaton, in the capital Wasteland, and they believed Cromwell to be a prophet of Atom. Some of them who were born in Atom's glow, as they put it, appear to have some kind of resistance to radiation.
There's so much radiation on the island. How come people here don't get sick?
Some do. But most of our family has been blessed at birth with an affinity for the glow. It's no more to us than a May rain, warm, comforting. It's why a place like this island truly is meant for his children. Others simply wither away while we gladly await division.
The children do believe, though, that Atom will punish them if they do something wrong or bad in the eyes of their deity, like the Archimist here.
You don't sound so great. Are you all right?
Old wounds. Reminders of a wicked life.
What sort of wicked life?
I was a doctor in Far Harbor. I fell for a pious man. A man who has since abandoned us. We were chased from town by those upset with our union. I must have angered Adam as well, as he afflicted me with this.
It's more likely that she did not have the same level of resistance as some of the others, as she was a convert and was not born into it. Some of the children of Atom would struggle with their faith, and this is best seen when the Grand Zealot Richter has the survivor track down and kill a member of the Children of Atom, a blasphemer they know as Sister Gwyneth. She lost her faith in Atom, basically, as she believed it to be nothing, so she started spreading messages at the various shrines of Atom on the island. Tracking her down, it seems that she had told Confessor Martin about her doubts, but these questions from Sister Gwyneth troubled him in regard to his own faith, and according to Tectus, he just abandoned the Children of Atom one night, never to be seen again. The Children of Atom are spread around the entire Commonwealth, but other than what I've shared here, there's not much else we know about them. But finally, let's discuss Elder Maxson. So I already discussed the Brotherhood of Steel in the Fallout 3 video because of the Broken Steel add-on, but essentially the Brotherhood are hoarders of pre-war technology. They do this so that they are the ones to be able to regulate the use of such technology, as they believe it to be dangerous when in the hands of people that they deem irresponsible. This is a large part of the reason for them going to war against the Institute. But the organisation as a whole is not what I want to focus on here. It's what happened at the end of Broken Steel and beyond that I want to focus on. During Fallout 3, the Lone Wanderer can meet a young squire by the name of Arthur Maxson, who was studying at the Citadel, where he learned the Codex, which lays out the rules of the Brotherhood. He lived by these rules even as a young boy, when he questioned why Elder Lyons would allow the Lone Wanderer inside the Citadel, even though he had not taken the oath. After Sarah Lyons, who trained him in combat, died after the events of Broken Steel, along with the Elder of the East Coast Brotherhood, Owen Lyons, Maxson witnessed the terrible leadership of the East Coast Brotherhood. He refined his skill and took down a Deathclaw by himself, and that gave him a nasty scar across his face as a reminder of this fight. Arthur Maxson was eventually sworn in as the new Elder of the East Coast chapter of the Brotherhood of Steel, and he would command the Prydwen, allowing him and his chapter of the Brotherhood to travel around the US at will, eradicating various cults and enemies of the Order. He was viewed almost as the saviour of the Brotherhood, something which he did not like at all, since he just viewed this as his duty. But that is pretty much it for the story of Fallout 4. As promised, a follow-up Vault video will be coming pretty soon, but if you enjoyed this video then please leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. Leave a comment below with your thoughts, but for now take care, and I'll see you in the next one.
Have you seen my baby? She's not a dame nor a lady. Not in the way she walks, the way she talks, or the way